welcome everyone to a special installment of Physio Disc where we will discuss the differences between tennis elbow and golfer's elbow. I know that I've read a lot of questions and I've seen a lot of questions. I've heard a lot of questions asked through one form or another asking about elbow pain when playing, and oftentimes I hear just the automatic response that you must have tennis elbow if you have elbow pain, and to go look about some exercises that you can do about helping with tennis elbow. But that's not always the case. There are two types of common elbow pains that can arise during playing disc golf, and they are tennis elbow, obviously, but also golfer's elbow. So today we'll look at what each of those two entail, and then how to tell the difference between the two, and then what you can do to treat either of those. First and foremost, I think it's important that we distinguish the difference in tennis elbow and golfer's elbow with the really telltale signs of the two, and that's the locations of the pain or discomfort that you may be feeling. And with tennis elbow, that will be located on the outside or lateral portion of your elbow. And it's pretty distinct. It's going to be right on that outside, and a lot of times when you grip your hand, something like that, you'll feel it right out here, or if you go to extend your wrist, you can feel it because you're acting or asking those extensor muscles to act or contract. If you have golfer's elbow, it's going to be located on the inside of your elbow, so outside versus inside. So inside right here, and that's the common flexor tendon complex, where all those flexor muscle tendons kind of insert on your elbow. So the easiest way to tell the two apart is the location of pain. Now, just because you have pain on the outside of your elbow, or even the inside of your elbow, does not mean that you have tennis elbow or that you have golfer's elbow. There could be a variety of things, but those are two very common injuries that happen at the elbow. And there are some really good special tests that physical therapists use to confirm. You always want to confirm. You don't just say, oh man, my elbow hurts, I must have a tennis elbow. Or, oh man, my shoulder hurts, I must have impingement. Oh man, my knee hurts, I must have hurt my meniscus. I mean, there's lots of things that could go wrong. There's also lots of things that are just normal pain, right? That doesn't necessarily mean you have a diagnosable condition. So in order to avoid jumping the gun and saying, hey man, I've got this, I'm gonna really hit it really hard, and possibly making something worse by treating something that you don't actually have, physical therapists will use something called special tests. And so we'll now take a look at some of those to confirm or to rule out tennis elbow and golfer's elbow. I think it's really important that we also discuss the mechanisms of injury. So for tennis elbow, the mechanism of injury, or how you injure yourself, starts in the pull through on a backhand drive. So when you're reaching back, some people I've seen come through here and come straight through, but there is a moment where there's full flexion at the wrist right before you snap out, right? So you're coming from full stretch of those extensor muscles to boom, the flick at the end. You're asking those extensor muscles to act. That's a lot of load for those tendons. And this often is an overuse injury. So if you are prepping for a tournament, or maybe you've just been playing a lot more recently, or you played like 3 or 4 rounds in a weekend and you're starting to feel that pain, that's probably an overuse. You're just not used to that much action. Now, it can also be an acute onset injury, which means that this is something you've done at the beginning of the season. Maybe you haven't been able to throw very much, and now that the season's rolled around, you want to get out as much as possible, and your tendons just aren't used to that work yet. Maybe you're not playing any more than you normally would, but your tendons aren't ready or prepared for that work. That's why warm-up and preparation is so important. So that's how that extensor tendon complex is injured in tennis elbow. So much like tennis elbow, golfer's elbow is accomplished the same way, right? It is from repetitive forehand throwing. Or maybe if you're just getting too much torque on your elbow, that can also be the case there too. But it ultimately comes from the overstretch of your flexor tendons and then quickly asking them to act. Stretch them too far beyond what they're used to working, range they're used to working in, and asking them to act. So on a forehand, again, you're coming through, there's that last second, or at some point during the throw, you're coming in, holding onto the disc, and you're coming to extension of the wrist, and then boom, flick through. It's a lot of work for those flexor tendons. And again, just like tennis elbow, if it's the beginning of the season and you have not thrown a lot in the off season because maybe it's cold where you live and you've been putting a lot, your elbow's not ready for it. Those flexor tendons are just not ready for you to go out and throw a bunch of throws or several rounds in a day, and you could pay for it later. Or if you're prepping for a tournament and maybe you're like man, I really got to work on my up shots, my forehand up shots, and you're throwing a ton of them and you haven't prepped for that, you can definitely start experiencing those symptoms. So that is how golfer's elbow develops. Now, fortunately for y'all who have caught my other videos regarding my wrist injury, you've already seen a lot of the exercises that we would do to rehabilitate golfer and tennis elbow. A lot of flexion, a lot of extension stretching with overpressure, a lot of resistance band work, a lot of grip strength. The name of the game is to decrease load and increase volume. You want to use resistance bands or really lightweight dumbbells to really give those tendons a lot of work to strengthen them. They don't have a lot of good blood flow, or they just have really low blood flow, so they're not going to heal well on their own. You can't rest. Rest is actually probably one of the worst things you want to do for this, because as soon as you go back, you're going to start getting it again. And if you've been taking it really easy, what can happen if you're not using those tendons at all, they can get fatty infiltrations in them. And then when you go to use them, and if you try to do the same work and try to play the same amount, you can really injure them because they're not nearly as strong as they were when you were using them before. So again, the name of the game, decrease load, increase reps, and that's how you're going to rehab those tendons. Well, that's it for this video. I hope this has been really educational and helpful for you all. If you have liked what you've seen and what you've heard so far, and if this has been helpful to you, which I hope that it has, I hope that you will like and share and subscribe to our channel. I'm really trying to get the word out, not about just Physio Disc and Physio Dude, that's not as important, but getting the educational components out there to disc golfers. I want to give back to the disc golf community with my knowledge and experience. And if I can do that and keep helping players stay on the course longer and stay hurt less frequently or decrease the amount of time that it takes to recuperate, then that's what I want to do. So if you've liked this at all, please share it. Please tell your friends about it so that they know where they can find it. So you're not depending on forums or asking just random people what they think that you should do to rehab yourself, because that's where a lot of that bad information is spread, and that's where a lot of people end up getting hurt more. So again, thanks for tuning in, and stay excellent. Check one, check one. Hello everybody. This is what I sound like and look like without a beard.